Dr. Brian from Genesis. We have Jonathan McAlees from Fortis Payment Systems, and we're both here for Principled Cash. Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have Jonathan here. We're talking about Principled Cash, and you notice I didn't say Dr. Jonathan, so he's not a chiropractor, but this guy has more principle than most chiropractors have. He's grown up in a chiropractic family, and actually I met you because of your brother, who's a chiropractor and a client of ours. But why don't you tell them your story and your father's story and about your family's history with chiropractic?
Sure.
Yeah.
So back in the 60s, my dad was in the Marine Corps. He enlisted because he didn't want to get drafted. Long story short, he's a little guy, he's about this big, and he was going up against bigger guys than him. He gets hit in the side of the head, flips upside down, lands on his head, gets knocked out cold. They kind of don't know what's wrong with him. They send him to the infirmary, they send him all over the world. He just slowly starts deteriorating. He goes from 185 pounds down to 86 pounds, full quadriplegic, in a wheelchair, no use of his hands or legs. So after that, he goes home, doesn't know what he's gonna do. His grandmother actually tries to get him, or his mother, my grandmother, tries to get him to go see her chiropractor, who she was seeing to help regulate her Addison's disease for her adrenal glands. So he eventually breaks, goes and sees this doctor, and this doctor happens to be Dr. Ian Grassham, one of the best principled chiropractors out there ever to live. And so he goes and sees him, he looks at my dad, his atlas is shoved into his spinal cord. Ian says, "I can fix you." So 6 months later, Ian gets my dad walking with a cane, riding a bicycle, and then eventually walking. My dad looks at him and says, "How can I ever repay you?" And Ian says, "Go become a chiropractor." So my dad then looks back at him and goes, "I'm an immigrant, I'm broke, I have no money." And Ian, being the guy that he is, pays for my dad to go to chiropractic college. So then my dad later meets my mom at a DE seminar where she is there with her father because her dad was a chiropractor. So my parents actually met at a DE seminar, and then my brother comes along and he becomes a chiropractor. So we've got my grandfather on my mom's side, my dad, and my brother. Then we ended up having aunts, uncles, cousins. My grandfather's brother was a founding member of Life University. So we have a family full of chiropractors. So I grew up in chiropractic. I literally wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for chiropractic.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. So now your brother, Matt, did first of all became a client of ours. I can remember it still clear as day when your dad, he was still a student, and they walked up to our booth at a trade show. I still remember it. And your brother looked like he was 10 years old. And they
He still does.
Yeah, he still looks young. But anyway, they came up, he became a client, and just he when he got into practice, just crushed it. I mean, he was seeing like 700-800 patients a week or something like that. And so a great family story, great principle just built into all you guys. So one of the things we'll get into in a minute is why you're so successful with Fortis is because you know what we needed, right? Because of your brother. But it just so happens his brother is a great testimony to this going cash thing because he was convinced to go cash when he was very young. Before he got into practice, he was convinced to go cash by principled coaching group. We air quotes on principled, but got lots of new patients. And what happened was, in reality, was he was actually, if you look back at his notes and his documentation, some of the things you heard from John, he was actually at more risk for an audit if he ever got audited by his state board or by Medicare because of sending super bills or all those things we said you can't do, that he did. Not to mention the money that he didn't collect, that he could have collected from those patients over those years without having changed much with using Genesis because we make it so easy. He'd lost about $1 million. So he lost all that money and had more exposure. And so once he finally came into the fold with some of the things we're talking about with John Davila and being compliant, he finally figured out, hey, I can practice with insurance like it's a cash practice, and he's making more money. And he's actually figured out the retention thing too. He's converting a lot of these patients to lifetime care and not having to get hundreds of new patients anymore, and collecting a lot of residual cash through Fortis, obviously.
And we used to actually joke, we used to call my brother the president because we thought it'd be easier to get a hold of the president than my brother, because he was killing himself to see that volume of patients. So he's seeing 700 to 1,000 a week, and he's killing himself to do it. No family life, stressful, and he's got to constantly turn around new patients every single month. So gain that attrition that he just lost.
Right.
And then he finally figured out, well, heck, if I build lifetime patience, now I've got something.
Exactly. Yeah, and of course now you're an uncle.
Yeah.
He got some time. He got married.
Yep.
He has a baby.
Yep.
So he's actually enjoying his life and making good money.
Making a lot more money.
And the retention being higher, that's more principled. He's
Yep.
actually more principled, making more money, but more free time, more quality of life.
And those lifetime patients, he tells me, are his best patients. They're the ones referring the most amount of people.
Yes.
They get it. They're not just in and out for 30 visits. They get some correction and they're gone. These are lifetime patients who get it, who once they get the correction, come in once a week and are dragging their family members with them into the practice.
So a little bit about Fortis. I'll tell you from my perspective, then you go into some of the details.
Sure.
Genesis obviously is a practice management system, quote unquote. We talked about patient relationship management. It's really a different way to use technology. We talked about single point management. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, there is a portion of a care plan where their patient is full on cash or they have some insurance, where Genesis will send a claim out to insurance companies. This is most complicated, so I'll talk about that first. It'll come all the way back, and once it's finished being what we call adjudicated by insurance companies, Genesis will take a portion of what's on their patient account that's cash and apply it so that each visit has a zero balance, right? So that's the way Genesis works. Also, we have inventory, so you can sell products and things like that. Now, where Fortis comes in is how do you take the one-time payment up front? How do you save a credit card on file? How, when you're running a POS, do you swipe a credit card or just charge the credit card on file? So, and then what if a credit card on file is declined or expires or something like that? So why don't you talk a little bit more about the actual integration between Genesis, which we know is seamless.
Yep.
But go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so in the other videos, we'll kind of go over some of the details of Fortis and what it does. But one of the best things about our integration is it makes it seamless for the office. So the two systems talk together. And when I say talk, they really talk together. So when you're in Genesis and you need to run a payment, you never have to leave Genesis to run a credit card payment. Whether it be a one-time swipe, you need to enter a chip card, you want to run a credit card or bank account on file and run a transaction, or you need to set up or edit a recurring. All of that happens from a little window inside of Genesis. So it's great, you're not having to go somewhere else, you're not having to grab a machine and run a payment and then manually enter it in. So what that does is it allows you to save time, it makes you a lot more efficient in your practice. You're also not missing things either. Because the systems talk, when a payment runs, it's gonna post right back to the patient's ledger, which is money, because I can't tell you how many times we've talked to people where they go, oh yeah, my staff forgot to enter those payments, and now we're trying to get a balance for this patient, and it's impossible to get.
It used to be in practices when I started practice, when I got out of school, where they'd literally have a Rolodex of credit card numbers on file, which is totally illegal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was back then. I know it is definitely now, where somebody had to go every month and just run, and it was always the first and only the first or only the 15th. Those were your two options, and they'd run those credit cards, and there'd be a mile of credit card slips, and people had to sign them when they came in. It was all this, and you would never know if somebody missed one.
There's no way to track it. There's no way to know any of that.
So now with this integration, they can do what? Any day of the month, right?
They can do any day of the month. You can run recurrings whenever you want, kind of however you want. The system runs automatically. So there's nothing you need to do. It's a set it and forget it system. The payment just runs and it's going to post right to the patient's ledger instantly. There's no time. By the time you close the window and go to the ledger, the payment will be there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and remember now, if it's a monthly payment, let's say it's $200, for example. Let's say the patient doesn't owe anything at this point. It'll keep it on the patient's account as a credit. So the next visit or that day's visit, when that patient comes in and the claim goes out to the insurance company, it actually still doesn't apply that credit. When it comes back from the insurance company, when it's fully adjudicated, then Genesis automatically takes a little portion of that. But what happens, they get under care, they're going through, their payments are running, all of a sudden their card expired, they moved, something changes. This happens to me all the time, right? My card expires and the gym calls me and hey, we haven't gotten a payment. Oh, I forgot about you guys, right? So what happens?
We automate a lot of these processes. So we know that's an awkward conversation. And it happened to me one day. I'm going into the gym and they're like, your payment declined 15 days ago? And now I feel weird. I'm like, oh, no, there was money. My card got stolen. I got it. And it's a very awkward conversation. And the light bulb went off in my head. I go, this is how patients feel when they're in an office. We got to fix this. So we do a couple things. One, we automatically email the patients, and we can collect their new payment right from home or their phone. They can even update that card going forward. So just checking a box, they can save that card on file, and we can use that card going forward.
Nice.
We also do a thing called a quick stop. So next time the patient walks into the office and they swipe into Genesis, a message is gonna pop up on their screen that says, see the front desk. On the front desk side, it's gonna say, you know, John Smith's last recurring payment of $150 declined on September 1st. And now the staff doesn't have to figure out what to do. It tells them right on the screen what they need to do, so they know they need to go collect that payment. So literally before that patient goes and get adjusted, we're making sure the office is collecting their money.
Cool. Are we also creating a task for that?
Yes, we create a task and put that on the workbench as well. So we make sure it never gets lost.
Right, so now imagine you're busy, right? Your staff is busy, you're busy, this credit card goes declined. All of a sudden at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, you go to your single point management screen in Genesis and you see one task at the end of the day that nobody did. Click on it, you see, oh, this patient's credit card got declined. We have to call this patient. There's already the quick stop, so you know if that patient were to walk in, they would be stopped, but somebody has to call this patient now too. So they got the email, they're gonna get stopped if they come in, and now they have a task. And that task, somebody owns it until it's completed, meaning you got a new credit card on file. So that's how you tighten down, you know, put a vice grip on the little leaky buckets, the little leaks in your practice that where cash is just flowing out. And because you're doing this and you're up to speed and you're on top of things, the experience the patient gets, even though you're asking for a credit card, which people may be sometimes uncomfortable for, when they know that it's not just this, that you're on top of every little thing that has to do with them and their care, every visit, every re-exam, every re-sign, if their credit card, if the inventory, when they know that you are on your game, the experience, they feel like they're cared for, that they're valuable, and they want to come back. They're gonna get great results if they keep coming. And obviously, because of those two things, they're gonna refer other people. So Fortis is a huge part of that.
One last thing, last weekend, I spoke to two practices at a big coaching event, and they both had the same problem. And they were both Genesis and Fortis users, and they came to us and we started talking, and they weren't entering all their payments in, and they weren't doing everything properly. They were kind of trying to go with these roundabout ways to do things, and because they just had the wrong procedures. And they were asking us, how do we know every patient that's supposed to have a care plan does have a recurring care plan? And we realized, well, if they're not putting all their payments in the ledger and they're not posting properly, the balance isn't gonna be correct, right? And so they were doing some things outside of Fortis, not posting it in, and it was causing this problem. And that's why, you know, just another reason why the integration is so great, because you can make sure that you're not giving away free care.
Absolutely.
Because if there's, I love chiropractors to death. I have a family full of them. They have hearts of gold. They wanna see patients get better, but oftentimes they give away too much care. And I want to make sure, we want to make sure that you guys get paid and you get paid properly when you're giving care.
Absolutely.
And that's what the two systems can help do.
Well, thanks. And if you want to learn more about Fortis or the Fortis Genesis integration, just click on the button below, enter your information, and we'll show you actually some screenshots of that, and you can get a better flavor for what that tastes like there. Okay. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.